Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the greatest entitled parent stories we read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled parents you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that if this video gets 1,000 likes, she won't try to speak to anyone's manager for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And become an official member of the Re-Army today, and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. r/Entitled Parents. Entitled Aunt calls me selfish for not giving my brand new 1,600-pound computer to my cousin. A bit of backstory. I'm fairly young, 13, and have been saving up for years to get a gaming computer, and my parents insisted I build, and so I did. I'm not particularly talkative and don't really look for trouble all too much. I don't know if that's important, but So my American relatives come over to stay for a few weeks, and one morning we're having breakfast and discussing why I use two computers, and I tell them that one is a laptop for schoolwork and Photoshop, and my PC is for gaming/video editing /anything intensive. I paid no mind to this conversation, and after breakfast, because I hate socializing and talking to people, boot up my computer and hop on to Destiny 2. Bit of a jerk move when relatives are over and stuff, to be honest. This is where my older cousin's brother, entitled kid is 11, is watching me creepily over my shoulder and is mesmerized by my fancy keyboard and mouse lighting and says to me, "Whoa, dude, how much did that keyboard cost?" And I answer, 150 pounds, to which he cringes and says back, "Well, if the keyboard and mouse cost so much, the computer must be super cheap." No, not really. The PC itself was around 1,200 pounds. "So you lied when you said it cost 1,600? Well, no, because I included the peripherals. At this point, he looks kinda confused and walks off, and I continue playing. A nightfall or two later, around half an hour, entitled kid comes back with entitled mom and says to me, "OP, did you really lie to entitled kid about your PC's price?" Not really. I just added the price of the keyboard, mouse, and monitor. "So if it's not as expensive as you said it was, could we get one? Where did you get it from?" "Sure, if you're willing to build it. There are a load of online tutorials and stuff on how to do it." "Build?" She was super angry because I told her that entitled kid would actually need to work to get a decent computer. "Why would my entitled kid who is 11 build a computer? Couldn't we just have yours, please?" I started laughing because it was a bit ridiculous that she wanted this computer that I had saved up for years and built myself. "I'm not kidding. You already have a laptop, so why do you need this?" "For video editing, gaming, etc." "You even bloated the price." "Has nothing to do with the situation." "And you don't need those mind-melting video games, you selfish boy." Good point. Still doesn't warrant her taking my computer. "And my son does so much more work than you. He deserves it." At this point, having been on this subreddit a bit, I detect she's transforming into a stage 2 Karen and prepare for her to try and yank out a cable or something, and I shut down the computer and hide the cables behind my desk and call for my dad. Bit of an abrupt ending, but entitled mom and entitled kid just glanced at me and for the rest of the week gave me death stares every so often. Next we've got entitled mom and entitled kid try to take my USB. I have had a few entitled parent stories before, and it would seem that my town is just very entitled. The roles for this story are me. We've got entitled kid, USB stealing little jerk. We've got my teacher who helped me get it back. We've got friend 1, friend 2. We've got entitled mom. We don't see much of Karen, but when we do see her, oh boy. And we've got the principal. On with the story. I write books, and basically, I have 2 USBs. One is in the shape of a horse, which you pull apart, then the USB is inside. I keep this one at home, and it was quite expensive and holds 53.6 gigabytes, I think. I then have a 1 gigabyte USB that I take places. It's just a normal USB that I use when I'm at school. I then put all of my work onto that, go home, then put it on the 53.6 gigabyte USB. This means that my 1 gigabyte, if I lose it, it's only 1 day's worth of work, not 5 months worth. One day I'm in the school library, 2 days ago, and I'm working on some Photoshop stuff. I was drawing the races for the story. It will be a fantasy one, and Entitled Kid made an entrance. Entitled Kid: "Wow, what are you drawing?" I am very protective over my work and get embarrassed when people talk to me about it, even if they mean well. Me: "Oh, just on some sketches." I was pretty much done with them by this point, so decided to try to disengage the conversation. I have to go now though. I ejected the USB. I learned to do that firsthand a few months back. Entitled Kid: "Is that where you keep all of your drawings?" Me: "Yeah, you interested in drawing yourself?" "I already do. I draw way better than you." I was kind of irritated, but I thought it could just be a slip of the tongue, so I let him off. Me: "Sure. Well, see ya." I begin to walk away. Then I felt a tug on my sleeve.
"Why don't you just give me the USB? I am better and could make your drawings better."
Me: "Sorry, no. I need this for what I'm working on."
"Fine, but I should still get it. You could just buy a new one."
Me: "Why don't you buy a new one? They aren't much."
"No, give me yours."
I just walk away. I thought that was the last of Entitled Kid, but a few days later, I was called up to the office. When I was called into the principal's, I knew there was something wrong. After sitting there, smug grins on their face, was Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid.
"There she is, Principal. Expel her now."
Principal: "Whoa now, calm down. We need to hear OP's side of the story." Entitled Kid:
"But she took my USB."
I knew what was happening, and after being on here for a while, I knew what to do. Me: "Sir, this is my USB, and I can prove it." Principal: "How?" Entitled Mom cut him off.
"No, she is stealing my son's work."
Principal: "Please, Entitled Mom, calm down." Me: "Can I please use your computer?" "Sure." I do that as the grins on Entitled Kid and Entitled Mom's face falter. I boot up the computer and plug the USB in. Me: "Can I prove it's mine?" Principal: "Go ahead." Me: "Entitled Kid, if this is yours, what size is it? How many gigabytes?"
16 gigabytes.
He says with confidence. Me: "Wrong. It's 1 gigabyte. And what does it have on it?"
Drawings.
"Of what?" Me: "I can tell you exactly what they were of. They are fantasy races from a book I have been planning to write for the last 5 months. Principal: "Is that so?" Me: "Yes, and I can prove that since you can ask me any question about the work on the USB and I can answer." Right. I moved away from the computer. "What is the race that specializes in stealth archery?" I answer. This kind of thing repeats with me answering easily every time. Me: "Is that enough proof?" Principal: "Yes, it would seem." Entitled Mom cuts him off once again.
"No, it would not. My son is writing that book, and she has plagiarized the entire thing."
Me: "And where's your proof?"
"On that USB."
"The one he knows nothing about, and I know everything?"
"Yes, you changed everything."
Me: "Can I go now?" Principal: "Yes." Principal gives me the USB. Entitled Mom spitting and screaming about something. That's it. I will post again if anything else happens, and hope to see you later. Thanks for reading. Next we've got Entitled Mom thinks I can tutor her son anytime. I've been tutoring kids in math and English for a few years now. The entitled mom in question is a family friend and the parent of my first student. Since they have been my first ones, and the kid is actually pretty smart, they just forget a passage here or there, I've always charged them next to nothing, 10 euros per hour. Apparently it wasn't enough. She started saying that we had to reschedule my lessons because their precious child had soccer practice, which was fine by me. I mean, yay, extra free time. The real problem arrived when she started to send me messages to book my lessons for the same day in just a few hours. Then came the bomb. We've got entitled Mom, the lovely lady. We've got me, and we've got good kid. Note, this pretty much all happened over text. Entitled Mom.
Can you come tutor good kid today at 3 p.m.?
Me. I'm sorry, Entitled Mom, but it's almost 2 p.m. You need to tell me in advance if you need lessons.
I just told you. You have more than an hour. You can come.
Me. 1 hour isn't exactly a lot. Plus, I really can't leave right now. I'm at university.
There's no need to treat me like this. It's not like I don't pay you.
Me. The money really isn't the issue here. I need time to understand what good kid has to do, and I've already told you that I'm in class right now.
Do you think I'm stupid? I know you go to the university, and you don't have to follow the courses. If you leave now, you can get here in less than an hour with public transport. We need you for 4 hours. Good kid has a test tomorrow.
I usually do 2 hours, and I'm losing patience. Okay, I'll try again. You're right. I can leave, and I can get there in time, but I won't. I need to follow this lesson, and you didn't give me enough time to prepare. Plus, I have a scheduled tutoring with another kid at 5, so I can't stay with good kid for 4 hours. If good kid wants to, they can try to do some exercises by themselves and send me a message if they get stuck on something. I really can't do anything else. She exploded. She tried to call me 5 times during my lesson, and I always rejected the call. Me. Stop calling me. I'm in class.
Answer me. I'm paying you.
Yeah, 10 euros. I'm paying 10,000 to stay here. If you have something to say, just write or wait another hour.
Don't you dare bring money into this conversation. I'm paying you way too much for the amount of work you do. We've always been good to you while you were tutoring good kid. I even bought you a gift for your birthday last year. I asked you for a favor once since you are always available for us, and this is how you treat me? Well, buzz off. We don't need your help. I'll find a better tutor for good kid, one that knows math.
Me. You know what? Fine. You're paying me half the amount I usually charge. You treat me like your own personal tutor. While I'm tutoring, it's a miracle if you offer me a glass of water, and you only bought me a gift because I came to an unplanned tutoring on my birthday, all dressed up for my birthday party, and you went out to buy it while I was tutoring good kid. Good luck at finding another tutor that accepts my pay and your times. After that, she just wrote some obscenities at me, and she stopped writing altogether. I still helped good kid via message that day since I felt bad for him. The only one who lost without doing anything. I heard his exam went okay. Is it over? Nope. She called my mother. Still, she was a family friend after all, and told her that I had been extremely rude to her without a reason. My mother almost ended me before I had time to explain, and then apologized profusely. Jump forward 1 month or so. My grandfather passed away due to a rapid illness, and we were devastated. He was loved by the community, and Entitled Mom knew him very well since she was always at his and my grandma's house growing up. She said nothing. She didn't even come to the funeral, and she knew about it because her other kid is in the same class as my sister. She only wrote something to me the day after the funeral. I kid you not. Entitled Mom.
Hey, OP. I'm sorry for heating up after you overreacted last time I wrote to you. Could you come and tutor good kid today in the evening?
I really wanted to go to her house and shout at her for hours, but since I am a good person, I just blocked her and never heard from Entitled Mom and good kid again. Next we've got,
I can't keep both? You'll hear from my lawyer.
This happened over the span of a few weeks and was finally all over yesterday. I sell household appliances for a living. It sucks, but it's decent money. A few weeks ago, a coworker sold a lady a washer for her new house. She keeps it a few days, then calls us saying it's making weird noises. We send our tech out and he takes a look. Nothing wrong with it. No weird noises. But we're a large corporation and try to make customers happy, so we agree to swap it. The delivery crew gets there and starts taking the old one out. This is when all heck breaks loose. Lady.
Why are you taking my washer? That's mine. I paid for it.
Delivery. Yeah, but we're exchanging it for a new one. So we take the old one that you claim is broken and swap it for a new one.
That wasn't the deal. I'm keeping both for the trouble you all caused me.
Delivery. If you don't let me take this one, we're not bothering taking the other one off of the truck. Pick one. You don't get both.
I'll sue.
Okay, we're leaving. Lady calls the store. She's furious. First thing she says is,
I'm suing you. This is so unfair.
Manager, we've already talked to legal. We've been told not to make contact with you. You have to do everything through legal/corporate now. Sorry, have a good day.
What? Why? I wasn't actually going to sue.
You said you were. That's all we needed to hear. Contact legal with the name and phone number of your lawyer. They'll get you taken care of. Thanks. Bye. Lady never called a lawyer. Never called the legal department. But yesterday she sends an email saying she would really appreciate the swap now. Delivery laughs. Store manager laughs. She's not getting that washer. Next we've got, charge my debit card $250? Enjoy your break. Before we begin, I do want to let everyone know that this is my first story on Reddit, and I'm on mobile, so I'll try to get formatting correct. Also, in this story, there is no dialogue. For a little background, I am a truck driver. I go all across the US and spend 99% of my time in my truck. It's not the most glamorous life, but I do enjoy it. After I started driving, I decided to get myself a PlayStation 4 for the truck so I can play on my downtime. I also got PlayStation Plus so I could enjoy some online competition. But after a few months being on the road, it really wouldn't work out too well. Not a lot of good Wi-Fi signals at truck stops. So I did the only logical thing and canceled the automatic renewal of my Plus account. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. Friday morning, I'm outside of Seattle, Washington, and I wake up to a text and email from my bank account notifying me that there was some suspicious activity on my account. Every once in a while, the bank will do this, as I may pay for food in Illinois one day, then in Nevada the next. So I log into my bank on my phone, and my heart stops. Somehow, PlayStation was charging my card $250, $247, $247, $75, and another $75. Luckily for me, I moved a majority of my money to my savings and not checking, so only the first $250 stuck and the rest were returned. Well, that isn't good, I thought, and proceeded to immediately call the bank and inform them that it wasn't me who made those charges. The bank put a claim on my card, and it was immediately suspended. Great. No more card available to make purchases or withdraw funds with. They informed me my new debit card would arrive in the mail in 10 business days. I was still mad. Later on in the day, I decided to call up PlayStation support and see if they could do anything on their end. They too put in a claim to get my money back. Sweet, I now have people working on it from two sides of the issue. But being the scornful person I am, it wasn't enough. Now it's time for some pro revenge. After looking on my account to see if I recognized the person, I realized they had hacked my account and added themselves as a kid. Interesting, I thought. Well, with PlayStation, if you have a kid account, you can do some interesting things with that account. So here is what I did. 1. Changed their password. 2. Maximum allowed time for online play is 0 minutes per day. 3. Maximum age limit of games they can play is 1 year old. 4. Internet browser was disabled. 5. Unable to chat to friends. 6. No Blu-rays were allowed to be played. 7. No PSVR allowed. 8. Only DVDs from the Netherlands are allowed to be played. 9. No purchases allowed to be made with that account. After I got this done, I felt euphoric about essentially having a PlayStation account he can't use. Now he has an expensive brick sitting in his living room. Oh, on a good note, PlayStation did refund my money 4 days later, including the weekend. And I was able to run by a local branch of my bank and have a temporary card issued to me. Entitled dad demands used car be given to his son instead of serious buyers. I'm relaying this story as told to me by my friend, a mechanic trying to help out his brother as he encounters an entitled dad. We'll call him the mechanic in the story. The mechanic's brother recently got a new job. To get to this job every day, he borrowed his father-in-law's car. He didn't know how long he would be able to use the car and didn't have the money to buy his own. The mechanic offered to find a cheap car, fix it up, and give it to his brother, who might pay him back someday in the future. The first person the mechanic checked with was his boss. The boss owned and managed the shop the mechanic worked at and had a side business fixing up and flipping cars. He sold the mechanic a '98 Toyota Corolla at cost that still needed to be fixed up for $600. The mechanic told his brother that a car was on the way and started fixing it up. He spent $175 on parts, bringing the total cost to $775. With the car fixed and ready, the brother informed his father-in-law that he would be returning the borrowed car. The father-in-law had a surprise. His intention all along was to give the car to him as a gift. He was waiting for his daughter's fast-approaching wedding anniversary to announce it. He had no knowledge of the mechanic's efforts to this point. The mechanic told his boss he would be willing to buy it back at $775, but the labor would be for nothing. The boss convinced him to try and sell the car himself. He listed the car at $1,100, knowing that he would be haggled down, and received quite a few inquiries. Only 2 were interested enough to come out to see the car. He scheduled them on the same day, an hour apart. The time for the first showing came and went with no one showing up. The mechanic assumed they were no longer interested and waited for the second appointment. Right on time for the second showing, 2 men arrived. The mechanic greeted them and they immediately started discussing the car. They talked about mileage, reliability, the work done on the car, all the normal stuff. Then they went on a test drive. Enter the entitled dad. When the potential buyers returned from their test drive with the mechanic, there was a car full of people waiting for them. A man got out of the car from the driver's seat. The mechanic approached him. Before he could speak, the man said,
"Where the heck have you been?"
The mechanic was shocked. "And you are?"
"We had an appointment."
"That was over an hour ago," the mechanic replied. He assumed the man was referring to the earlier appointment. A boy emerged from the passenger seat.
"Is that my car, Daddy?"
he asked.
"Yes, son, it will be soon."
The mechanic was somewhat dumbfounded. He looked at the car that the entitled dad and his son had arrived in and saw a woman and 2 small kids in the back seat. It looked like they were keeping their heads down. The son approached the car for sale as the 2 potential buyers that had just test drove it moved away, one of them on his phone.
"It's rusty,"
the son said while pointing to a rust spot on the passenger door.
"Yeah, it looks pretty crappy."
Entitled dad turned to the mechanic.
"Does this piece of crap even run?"
"You saw us arrive in it, and you saw the rust spot in the photos."
"Not worth the asking price."
"Those other guys were on time, so you can wait if..."
"You scheduled 2 showings at the same time?"
"No, you were late." The mechanic turned away to talk to the potential buyers.
"Hey!"
Entitled dad exclaimed.
"Forget those guys. I'll give you $550 in cash."
One of the potential buyers laughed. The entitled dad amused him. The mechanic continued to face away from entitled dad. "If you're not serious about this, just leave," he said while walking towards the potential buyers. Entitled dad's son got in the car and sat in the driver's seat. "Hey!" The mechanic knew that they left the key in the ignition. The next moment, the engine rumbled to life and the son sat back in the seat with his hands on the steering wheel. "Hey!" The mechanic yelled again and ran to the driver's side door, which was still open. He reached in and shut the car off, taking the keys. "Get out!" "Daddy!" the son called out. It creeped the mechanic out how this teenage boy kept calling his father Daddy.
"Are you okay, son?"
Entitled dad glared at the mechanic.
"He's trying it out."
"No, he's not. Take your kid and leave." The son ran from the car and leaned against his father's side with an exaggerated sad face.
"He's just a kid,"
Entitled dad explained.
"He wants a car, so give him the car and you'll get your $550.
"We'll take it," the potential buyer who was on the phone a moment ago called out, making sure that everyone could hear him. "We'll pay what we agreed to." They had not agreed to anything yet, but the mechanic jumped on this chance for an out. "Sorry, you've been outbid. $550 is way too low."
"Anyone who pays more for this piece of crap is a moron."
Entitled dad roughly grabs his son and practically throws him back into the car. Without another word, he drives off. One of the potential buyers could not hide his amusement and kept laughing. The other smiled at the mechanic. "We really do want the car," he said. "Now that that jerk is gone, we can talk about price. If you agree to $980, we can give that to you in cash right now." The mechanic agreed, making a $200 plus profit. Next we've got entitled mom demands that I give her my PS4 just because she told me my headlights were on. This just happened, and I've already reported to the housing complex security. I just came back from the mall and was just playing my PS4. I then got a knock on the door, and it was an entitled mom and her kid. We've got entitled mom, who's also an entitled beggar. We've got entitled kid. We've got me and my uncle. Entitled mom.
Hi, neighbor. I noticed your headlights were still on, and we took our time to tell you this.
Me. Oh, I didn't notice. Thank you, entitled mom. I turned off the headlights and walked back to my house. I thanked her, and before the door closed, entitled mom put her foot in between. I reopened the door. "Is there something else?" Entitled mom.
Aren't you going to give me anything?
"Give you what?"
Well, duh. Me and my son just took our time to tell you your headlights are on. You should give us a gift.
Okay. I gave her like 20,000 rupiah. She took it and looked as if I gave her rotten food.
This isn't enough.
What else would you need?
I don't know. Entitled kid, what do you want?
Entitled kid gestures to my PS4 and starts begging me to give it. Entitled mom.
We will take that.
Me. I'm sorry, Miss Entitled Mom, but you're asking a gift that isn't even worth that much. And all you did was tell me my headlights were on. Keep the 20,000, but I'm not giving you my PS4. Good night. I was closing the door, and Entitled Mom slammed it open.
I will not leave until you give me your PlayStation thingy.
Me. Again, Miss Entitled Mom. That's not going to happen. I bought this with my own money, as well as that car and all my electronics. Please leave, or I'll call the complex security.
Give it to me now. I need it.
No. Then my uncle walked downstairs to see the commotion. Uncle. What's going on here? She wants the PS4 as compensation for telling me my headlights were on. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
But I demand you give it to me.
Uncle. That PS4 was bought by me and only me, so you have to ask.
Can I?
Slam. And my uncle slammed the door in her face. Entitled Mom continued to knock on my window and then my doorbell. We just ignored it and she left. I later reported her to complex security and they will look into it. Edit. The PS4 does belong to me, but also my uncle. We shared the cost of it together. Next we've got, is honesty always the best policy? I worked for a large retail chain with a pharmacy included. Crabby customers inside. I loved my job. My assistant manager, however, did not like me so much. Our store manager promoted me this last summer and started passing the assistant manager duties to me one by one. Assistant manager was quiet about that, but I could see a slow resentment building. I did not see this shift of responsibility as a sign he was going around her, but apparently she did. Our store manager was hospitalized September 28th and is still there from what I hear. But in the last few weeks, with him hospitalized, the assistant manager took this time to dispose of me, so to speak. A little backstory. In my personal life, I have made drastic positive changes. I'm almost 1 year sober. I'm heavily involved in the recovery program, and I'm making my amends in life every day. Over a year ago now, I was at the lowest point a person could go, and I made a very stupid, selfish mistake that ended with a DUI on my record. Thankfully, no one was hurt but me, but it's something I am not proud of. Well, when I was promoted this summer, HR did another background check and that DUI came up, but I guess it was kept confidential to a point. Meaning my assistant manager knew that there was something on my background check that came up that didn't affect my promotion, but she was curious as to what it was. Thinking nothing of it at the time, I told her about the state I was in at the time of my accident and a few bits about what my life had been like in the past. Since I have made huge life changes, I impulsively share my life as open and honestly as I can. It helped me and others to hear we aren't alone, but you never know who might need to hear your story. Anyway, Very shortly after that, several of my cashiers asked me if I was a criminal. And when I asked them where they heard about it, it was, of course, my assistant manager that had so nicely shared my story with her twist on it. She also added a few rumors about me that were 100% false. I said nothing and moved on with my life, smiled, worked my butt off, and did not resent the rumor mill. I should have seen then and there that it wasn't something I should just ignore. Life lesson, I guess. Anyway, backstory over. So a few weeks ago, with my store manager in the hospital and assistant manager in charge, my schedule came out for the first week of October and my full-time hours were slashed. I thought that was odd and made a note to mention it to the assistant manager when I saw her. Trying to think positively, I just wanted to assume that since it was her first time doing the schedule, she made a mistake. Wow, I was naive. I come into my first shift of the week and the assistant manager had a huge smile on her face and asks me to go up to the office. I get up to the office and 2 employees from HR are there. They ask if I can write a statement regarding an accusation that I marked down some candy bars back in October for more than they should have been. Apparently, I priced them at $1 off when it should have been 50 cents off. They said that the information that HR had received, gee, I wonder who this mystery person was, claimed I did this intentionally and for my benefit, since myself and the rest of the staff that shift purchased one each. I didn't remember this day in August, since I clearance items out every single day, but I did let them know that I would never break policy to my benefit. That is the same as stealing. Also, noting that I shop in my store every day, days off included, and I do not need 50 cents off on the sly. They told me I was suspended while they investigated, and I knew that was it. As most everyone knows, suspension means fired 99% of the time. A week after suspension, I was told they no longer needed me at the store. I asked for any information from the investigation that would have made this so cut and dry, and all I was told is, WA is an at-will employer. We don't need a reason. That all happened last Tuesday, and I have been unemployed since. My regular customers found out very quickly. Some found me on Facebook, some see me around town, and all of them are sad and angry that things ended the way they did. A few have shared what my assistant manager continues to say about me. Sadly, none of it is true, and she's still at it. But coming away from this, I really wouldn't do anything differently. My story is a part of me and who I am now. I really believe if I would have lied about my background check when my assistant manager asked, it would have caught up with me eventually. I have been overwhelmed with the notes and messages from my regular customers. I guess the whole point of this story, aside from the point that life can get better if you're in a dark place, is retail workers / cashiers / stalkers do matter to the regulars we see daily. I have been told by one sweet older woman that would come in every evening to buy her cigarettes that I gave her the courage to leave her abusive relationship. 2 guys that used to come in for booze every night now attend my weekly recovery meetings. An elderly couple brought me a plant and encouraged me to keep my chin up. They shared how much just me smiling at them and taking the time to listen to them talk about their grandchildren made their days brighter. I miss some of my coworkers and definitely my sweet regulars, but I don't miss the stress of feeling bad about myself on a daily basis from an assistant manager that just wasn't happy with her life and had to take it out on me. Toxic is toxic, and no one needs to work around that. But don't we all? No job is too small. No job is insignificant. Humans being kind to humans makes an impact. That is my takeaway on this small event in my life. Don't get me wrong, I was angry, especially at this point in my life where I do go out of the way to do things the right way. Getting fired stings, very much so when you know you're not at fault. But anyway, I apologize for the ramble. I know this story is a bit out of place for this sub. Just wanted to share in case any of you have days where you doubt that your job matters. I wouldn't have known my little retail job made a difference to anyone if it wasn't for the regulars sharing their stories with me after the fact. Next we've got, tour manager thinks he knows better than the technical staff for a big-name comedian, probably lost his job. So this happened quite a few years ago. I used to work as a senior technician for a large entertainment venue, around 2,000 standing capacity. Most of the time we would have private events, etc. But this particular day, a very well-known comedian was booked to do an hour at the venue. Before the show, I was expected to meet with his tour manager, discuss his needs, set up stuff, etc. He arrives and immediately sets the tone. Personally, I think they thought they were too big to play our venue, but they clearly didn't know what they got into.
Dave won't use any of your crappy mics. He tours with his own sound system.
Sure, when is it getting here?
I've got it with me,
The manager said in the most condescending tone ever. He proceeded to pull out a self-contained speaker system, no bigger than a suitcase. There was no way it was going to fill the first 2 rows of tables, never mind the rest of the venue, which would be at capacity that night. No problem. I can give you a tie line so you can use our speakers.
That's not acceptable. Dave will only use our speakers and mic.
To cut a long story short, I spent about 15 minutes arguing with the guy who was belligerent and refused to acknowledge that his crappy system on its own wouldn't fill the venue, and there was no way I could let them do it without support from us. I explained he would have full control over the sound. My gear was there just to amplify it. It wouldn't need to touch the desk. That still wasn't good enough for him, and he threatened to pull Dave from the show. Edit. For clarity, he was very aggressive and condescending. At a few points, he tried to claim I didn't know what I was doing, and that I shouldn't be employed by the company as I was clueless, no matter how much I explained the science, etc. He tried to scare me into doing what he wanted by threatening to pull the show. There was no need for this. It was him being stubborn and trying to pull power, thinking I would back down and let him cause serious complaints for the venue because of his poor tech knowledge. He eventually backed down when I told him, fine, I'd call the venue manager and explain the situation. I'd get a night off, and he wouldn't get paid. Much rather that than hundreds of complaints and refunds. He backed down and we set up for the show, but he was still a jerk, and the act was no better. They clearly thought they were better than us, and it showed. The act even walked around backstage in his boxers into different people's dressing rooms without knocking, etc. Between them, they both managed to annoy everyone. I had enough. The tour manager had set up a little sound desk at the side of the stage for him to use for Dave's microphone. He was standing there throughout the show, mixing his mic. Where he put himself meant he couldn't hear how it sounded, but could be seen by everyone. My lighting OP and I were at the back of the room a few hundred feet away and hatched our plan. The first few minutes of the show went fine until the tour manager moved away from his desk to listen. As he walked away, for some strange reason, Dave's mic would feedback. He would run back to the desk, try to correct it, but it would solve itself. A couple of minutes later, he would walk away and it would start to get that horrible feedback again. Nothing that the audience would notice too much, but Dave and his tour manager certainly did. The tour manager was puzzled. He couldn't understand why this was happening, and Dave was getting more and more irate, glaring at his manager throughout the act. What they didn't know was that I was watching the manager, and every time he stepped away, I turned up the high frequencies at my desk, causing the feedback. As he got to the desk, I would correct it and get rid of the feedback myself. Rinse and repeat. He got so annoyed, he came to the back of the venue, barged into our control box, and looked at my desk, which of course was set naturally as we had discussed.
Have you touched your desk?
No, mate. Actually, I did once. Seemed like you were struggling with feedback, so I took a bit of the top out. He walked away sheepishly back to his desk. About halfway there, the mic started feeding back again, this time quite aggressively. He had to run the last 50 feet or so, which only drew more attention to him, especially from Dave the comedian. On his way out of the venue, I heard the tour manager being chewed out by Dave about how incompetent he was. Few years later, I meet Dave at another venue I'm working at. Turns out he's a decent enough guy. Didn't mention the revenge I did on the tour manager, but told him about the gig. Turns out it was one of the last times he used that manager, one of the reasons being how bad that gig was. Edit. As per the rules here, all names are fake, including Dave the comedian. Please don't try and guess who they are. I won't say who out of professional courtesy and abiding by the sub-rules. No double bluffs, just names picked at random. Entitled mom and entitled kid ruin movie night. Not super long ago, fiance and I went out on a movie night. We are both fans of The Lion King growing up, so we went to see the live-action version in theaters. Entitled mom made our entire viewing experience terrible. Fiance and I booked our seats 2 weeks in advance, and we got some pretty good seats. We went opening weekend, but to avoid the younger kids, we opted for an 8 p.m. showing. Turns out, later shows don't keep the kids away. Fiance got us a jumbo popcorn, and we make our way to our seats. Pretty peaceful so far, until we entered the theater. Entitled mom and her 2 entitled kids were sitting in our seats. I'm not confrontational, but Fiance will be if needed. He goes right up to entitled mom. Fiance: "You are in our seats." Fiance showed the tickets on his phone, and entitled mom made a shocked Pikachu face. Entitled mom:
Now listen here. This is a kids' movie that I paid for us to enjoy. You will hurt my angel's feelings.
Entitled Kid 1 and Entitled Kid 2, both between 5 and 7, were occupied on iPads. Fiance: "You have 10 seconds to move." Entitled mom gathered her purse and her spawn, and they moved exactly a row ahead of ours. She kept glaring back at us as we took our seats. Soon the theater filled up some more. Entitled mom was on her phone, and her entitled kids kept playing on the iPads. The lights dimmed, and their screens are very annoyingly bright. Other people started telling them to turn it off.
We will when the movie starts.
She shouted at the theater, but everyone was angry. Fiance: "Put them away." She then turned angrily at us and made the shush face with a finger over her lips. Fiance stuck his tongue out at her, and I laughed. A few others in our row snickered too. By popular demand, entitled mom takes the iPads away from her kids, and they start screaming. Entitled Kid 1:
Give it back.
Entitled Kid 2:
I want my iPad.
And then the 2 of them start crying, begging for their iPads back. Entitled mom lets her kids cry. They were now bored, and bored kids find other ways to occupy themselves. They soon run up and down the aisles, up and down the steps. Other person:
Control your kids, lady.
Other person had 2 kids herself with her, and they were far better behaved. Entitled mom calls her kids back and tells them to behave. There was peace for 2 minutes. 3 others arrive and say entitled mom and entitled kids are in their seats. This was a group of teenagers, probably 16 or 17-ish. Entitled mom:
No, my seats.
They show entitled mom the tickets on their phones. Entitled mom looks utterly defeated. The theater was nearly packed by this point. Entitled mom screams and calls the teens spoiled brats. She does not move. Fiance is annoyed, very annoyed. Fiance: "Those are not your seats either. Go to the right ones." The only open seats left were in the front row. Bad seats. Of course, entitled mom takes everyone else's. The teens tell her to move, and so do others. She then stands up and looks at the theater that hates her and her entitled kids. Theater employee: "What is going on here?" Entitled mom:
They stole my seats, and these teens want my new seats.
Other person: "Get out, you liar." Employee: "Ma'am, I've seen the whole thing already. Go to your right seats or leave. You have one chance." Entitled mom is angry now. She took her drink and splashed half of it at Fiance and I. Then she threw her popcorn at the employee and at the teens. She grabbed her kids and ran out. I'm not sure if security got her or not. Fiance was annoyed, and so was I. By then, the movie was about to begin. Fiance and I went to clean ourselves up in the bathroom, causing us to miss the first 15 minutes. But the rest of the night was fine. Next we've got entitled Grandma thinks kids playing at the park are destroying public property. I posted my first encounter with entitled Grandma already, and I had a second encounter with this woman. If you didn't read the first encounter, I'll sum it up. Myself and my group of friends were playing at the park. Her grandson saw us playing and wanted to join. We let him join, but he threw a tantrum when it wasn't his turn for one of the play equipment. Entitled Grandma came over and demanded he have his turn. We denied, and entitled Grandma left to call the cops, and we just left the park. Now to the next encounter. This happened a couple months after the first encounter. It was a couple days after Christmas, and kids were out of school for winter break. Cast: we've got me, we've got entitled Grandma, we've got close friend, we've got my sister, and my mom. This started when my sister wanted to go to the park to try out her new Crayola chalk set she got for Christmas. Close friend was over, and she thought the park was a good idea. We were at the park for a couple of hours. My sister was drawing on the sidewalk at the park and the concrete under the gazebo of the park. Close friend and myself eventually got bored of drawing with chalk and went to the swings. The swings were too low, as they were meant for kids of different ages. Close friend and I would throw the swing over the top so the chain was shorter and the swing set higher. That's when I heard a familiar screeching voice, entitled Grandma.
You kids, stop destroying public property.
Here comes entitled Grandma wearing a robe and slippers. It was past 5 p.m. by the way, and shaking her fist at us. She's wobbling as fast as she can towards my sister. Remembering the last encounter I had with this woman, I quickly went to my sister's side and close friend followed behind me. Entitled Grandma finally made it to us and was wagging her finger at us as she yelled,
You kids have no respect for public property. You're graffitiing over the sidewalk.
She pointed at every single drawing my sister had made, as well as mine and close friends' drawings and scribbles. This obese old woman then violently pointed her finger, underarm flapping away while she did this, at the swing set.
And you two, I saw what you two did to that swing set. You can break those chains, and a kid could get hurt. Do you know how many times my precious grandbaby goes on those swings?
The woman continues on with the lecturing and yelling. None of us could get a word out. My sister is in tears at this point, and I'm holding her trying to soothe her. That's when I noticed my parents' car pull on the side of the road at the park. I see my mom get out of the passenger side, and she did not look happy. Quick side note, my mom is very much a mama bear when it comes to her kids. You do not mess with her kids. Mom. Excuse me, ma'am, what are you doing? Entitled Grandma turned around so fast, I'm surprised she didn't break a hip.
Are you their mother?
2 of them are mine. What's this about?
You need to teach your daughters not to destroy public property. They have no respect. My 3 boys would never do such a thing at this age. They knew better.
Mom looked mad. Destroy what exactly? They're drawing with chalk. Chalk washes off and fades away. I know my daughters are not the only kids that draw with chalk at the park.
Well, these 2 were destroying the swings.
Mom leaned over to look at the swing set and saw the chain flipped over. Mom, you're kidding me, right? They made the swing higher. That's not destroying it.
Well, my boys would never.
I do not care about what you have to say about your children. You are lecturing and scolding my children when you have absolutely no right. They are kids playing at the park. I am their mother, not you. I will decide if they are doing something wrong. You do not. Entitled Grandma was so surprised by my mom talking back to her that her mouth was open the entire time. It looked like she was struggling to find the words to say.
Well, I never.
Now leave my kids alone. If I ever see or hear you try to scold or parent my kids again, I will contact the authorities to report you for harassing my kids. Entitled Grandma scoffed and waddled off without another word. Mom ushered us into the car. It turned out that Mom had just gotten off work, hence why I knew it was past 5 p.m. as that's when she gets off work, and was too tired to cook dinner and wanted to go out to eat. Her and my dad stopped by the park to pick us up to go out to eat, but she wasn't expecting to see Entitled Grandma yelling at us. After this encounter, Entitled Grandma never bothered me or my sister again. If she saw us heading to the park and her grandson was out there playing, she'd force him back inside the house with him kicking and screaming. We'd occasionally get death glares from this woman, but that was the only contact we'd ever get from her again. This is a little off topic, but since Halloween is getting closer, just to give you a clue of how much kids and teens don't like this lady's house got egged and TP'd every year without fail. She'd call the cops each time too, but since there were no witnesses or any suspects, the police couldn't do anything. Close friend and I might have been some of those teens that egged her house. Sweet revenge. Next we've got,
You really don't work here? Well, you should still help me anyways.
Went to have lunch with my boyfriend over his break. We ate at the back room and then finished up and walked out of the back room into the store. That's when Karen spotted me. My boyfriend was wearing the uniform of the store, solid colored shirt with name tag and solid colored pants. I was wearing a polka dotted cardigan a denim skirt, no name tag, zebra print Converse, and jewelry. He works in a department store and made a beeline for his department, which is mostly outdoors. I decided to stick around to buy some windshield wiper fluid, so was walking towards that aisle. Karen flagged me down. Karen.
Excuse me? Hey, hi. I'm in a rush, babe. So,
Me. Hi. Actually,
I need to buy a desk fan, and
Oh, actually,
I'm not finished.
but
A desk fan and bath towels, the soft kind, not the cheap ones. Do you have laminating sheets? Actually, never mind. I need me. Ma'am, listen.
Karen.
A mesh basket, staple refillers. Are there different sizes? Anyways, I need the medium size, I guess. Are you listening? I'm in a huge rush. And
So finally, I just started walking away. It's at this point that Karen grabs my shoulders. I don't react well to being touched by strangers. Me.
what are you doing?
Karen.
I wasn't finished. I am on a time crunch, babe. Why are you being so impatient? I mean, really. You're at work, honey. It's like no one respects people older than them these days. I just can't believe
Me. I don't work here. Do I look like I work here? Karen looks at me and realizes her mistake and becomes visibly embarrassed. I'm finally calming down from having been grabbed by a stranger.
But you came out of an employee-only door.
Me. I was visiting my boyfriend for lunch. Even if I worked here, you don't just touch someone. Karen.
So, you really don't work here?
Me. No.
So, can your boyfriend help me?
No, he works in gardening. Karen stops to think for a moment. I guess she had a system error when she couldn't ask for the manager, seeing as I didn't work there. She was looking extra embarrassed now and dramatically shielding her face like they were paparazzi covering her important life.
Well, you probably know the store if your boyfriend works here. You could just help me find my things. That would be the nice thing after causing this inconvenience when I told you I'm in a hurry.
Me. Why would I help you after you grabbed me like a street thug? Are you insane? We're done. I turn to go, still shaken up. She calls after me.
You can't blame me for thinking you work here when you came out of an employee-only door. I'm going to report your boyfriend to the garden manager for having you back there.
Me. Jerk. I stopped myself before I flew into a full-on rage. Karen.
Excuse me?
I stopped walking at this point because I didn't actually know whether my boyfriend was technically allowed to have me back there or eat lunch back there, and didn't want to get him in trouble. But I also couldn't bring myself to help this woman after all that. Me. Fine, I'll help you. Just make it quick. I snatched her list from her, and sure enough, I knew where about half the things were, which made it all that much easier to strategically avoid those aisles as I dragged Karen on a time-sucking trek around the store. This is always where they keep the laminating sheets, and they're out, but you can get a 48-pack of duct tape and tape a clear layer over your documents. It'll work just as well. Here you go. I could have sworn it was aisle 5, but I guess it's actually aisle 25. We have to go back. Oh, silly me. It was aisle 6. Back we go. You know what? They're out. My mistake. It's actually aisle 18. We did this for almost 45 minutes. Longer than I thought I could pull off. There's no cell reception in the store, and almost no clocks to keep people shopping longer. So it wasn't until we walked past customer service and she saw their desk clock that she realized how long this had been going on. She was mad. She stormed past 8 people waiting in the customer service queue to file a complaint about me eating lunch with my boyfriend, then wasting her time. I knew the customer service guy, not super well, but we'd met. He listened patiently to her side of the story, then came over to me separately and asked what happened. I broke down. I was so upset. I said, I was having lunch with my boyfriend, and she saw me leaving the back room and said if I didn't help her buy the things on her list, she'd get him fired. And I had no idea it was against the rules, and he didn't either. I swear, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to waste her time. This store is just so big, and she didn't give me a choice. She said I had to help her, and I'm crying by then, and the customer service guy goes, "Whoa, whoa, slow down. People have lunch back there all the time. It's not a problem. I'll give her a coupon and she'll unclench. Just go home." So I lingered to be sure the customer service guy didn't get in any trouble defending me, because in the hierarchy, he was basically the same level as my boyfriend, so would be vulnerable if Karen escalated. Customer service guy: "Ma'am, if you'll just join the line, I will resolve this issue to your satisfaction." Karen:
Are you kidding me? I just missed my appointment because of that backroom bimbo. And you're telling me to what? Wait, what? Where? What? Where is your manager?
Customer service guy: "I can call my direct supervisor, ma'am, but you'll have to wait for him at the back of the line. These other customers have been here, and once I service them, I'll help you right away."
I want to talk to him now.
He isn't back here at the moment. He's attending to business elsewhere in the store, but I have notified him he's needed at this desk, and he'll be here to assist you at his earliest convenience.
Don't try to play me dumb. He's back there. I can tell he's back there.
If he were here, you'd see him. Back here is just behind the desk. Further back, all we have back there is a fax machine and file cabinet. I assure you, there are no offices or anywhere anyone would be staked out to avoid you. Now, excuse me, I need to help this customer. Karen keeps trying to get his attention, and he keeps helping someone who's returning a cartload of stuff. Finally, Karen tries to launch herself over the counter, but does not have the agility to make it over, and just kind of bounced a couple inches off the ground. Security came over at this point and asked her to either join the queue, shop, or go home. She stalked off with a security officer way less understanding than customer service guy to try and sell her tale of woe. I took that opportunity to go home. My boyfriend had to go directly to his second job, but I can't wait to laugh about this with him later. Next we've got fired me while on medical leave, put them on permanent leave. So first, your typical backstory. I was an employee at a well-known breakfast chain, particularly popular for their wide selection of pancakes, for nearly 3 years. I was decently well-liked among the employees and had a very good friend who had just been promoted to a shift manager by the former general manager, who was a really great guy that unfortunately got transferred to a different store against his wishes. He was replaced by a horrible, power-hungry shift manager that no one cared for. So a typical work week for me was 6 days a week, between 60 to 70 hours a week, with Tuesdays being my only day off. My shifts ranged from 8 hours to as much as an 18-hour double shift. Important later. I worked this schedule without complaint for years of my life. Unfortunately, on September 10th, I felt very ill while at work for no known cause. This was accompanied by very severe stabbing pain in my lower right abdomen. I called the general manager, it was about 12 a.m. at this point, and informed her I planned on leaving to go to the ER, to which she told me if I left, then I would be fired. Now at the time, I really needed this job, so not wanting to be fired, I decided to work through my shift. I had 2 hours remaining, but it was horrible to work through. Finally, 2 a.m. rolled around, and I immediately left to drive to the hospital. Upon arrival, I was admitted almost immediately into the hospital due to scan results showing an inflamed appendix. I called the general manager and let her know that I was being admitted to the hospital and would keep her updated. Her response?
If you're going to try to get out of work, can you at least find someone to cover your shift in the morning? Some people.
Note at this point, it was around 3:30 a.m. My next shift that she wanted me to cover was at 8 a.m. the next morning. A few hours later, I was notified that I needed an appendectomy and it would be scheduled for the following morning. I agreed, signed the release, and called up my manager to notify her. I told her that I would be out of work for at least a few days, but after surgery I'd let her know. It is important to know that I kept her informed throughout my entire absence. I even sent her a picture of myself laying in a hospital bed after multiple accusations of faking. I still have the texts if anyone is interested. So surgery went smoothly. However, they found out that I had a gangrene infection in my appendix that appeared to have spread. Due to complications involving this, my hospital stay ended up being 2 full weeks. I was discharged at noon and drove to work almost immediately after discharge to inform them I was out of the hospital and cleared to come back. as well as turn in the hospital note, proving I was there. To my surprise, the regional manager is there. I walk in and find both the regional and general manager at the front counter having a conversation. I slide the note towards them on the desk and inform them that I was cleared to come back to work. The general manager looked at me in utter disbelief.
Excuse me? You've already been terminated for no call, no showing for 2 weeks.
I reminded her that I did, in fact, keep her informed and had proof. She cut me off and with an annoyed tone said that she'd give me another chance. I came back in that night for my shift, luckily working with my friend, the shift manager. I was also training a guy I had never seen before, not uncommon as I was a floor supervisor/trainer. My friend later called me into the office, and that's when I learned that I was only rehired so that I couldn't file a wrongful termination suit, and said that the person I was currently training was my replacement. The general manager had plans to fire me the next morning. As shocked as I was, we immediately hatched a plan. So this restaurant was dirty. Huge roaches infesting the kitchen and dining room, black mold, rotten food mixed with fresh food, water leaks so bad the carpet in the dining room is literally decaying. You name it. We have reported these issues to the general manager multiple times, but nothing ever happened. My friend sent the trainee home with the excuse that our labor was too high, and I spent the remainder of my shift taking pictures of every continuous health code violation I had seen. I went as far as cooking orders just so I could get pictures of the grills and kitchen areas without suspicion from other employees. Finally, the next morning rolled around. I woke up to a call from the general manager. Sure enough, she demanded that I turned in my uniform because I was being terminated immediately. I drove up there and asked for the reason behind my termination, and she replied that I was a lazy worker who always complained that they had hours. Please remember, I averaged about 64 hours a week and never complained. Not in the mood to argue, I simply turned in my uniform and left. But that's not the end of my plan. I was one of the only food safety permitted employees. I had just renewed my permit, so all of the information in the class was fresh on my mind. I also distinctly remember the health inspector teaching the class stated that if we wanted to report our workplace, just come in, ask for him, and bring evidence. I went straight to the health department, asked to speak with him, and supplied several written paragraphs of every violation, as well as all of the pictures I had taken to back my claim up. He informed me that with the picture evidence, it would be hard for the restaurant to fight. He also informed me he would follow up with a surprise inspection the next morning. The next morning I woke up and found messages from my general manager calling me a snitch and a whiner. Luckily, my friend recorded the entire inspection from the office. Due to how recent this story is, I will not be releasing it due to it showing faces as well as names being mentioned, but it was beautiful, and it showed who the true whiner was in this situation. The general manager was slapped with a hefty $7,000 fine for allowing unpermitted employees to work, and the restaurant was ordered to shut down operations permanently. Now, as much as I want to feel bad for the people left without work, I don't. And for the decent employees, the story actually has somewhat of a happy ending. My friend has always talked about wanting to open her own 50s diner-style restaurant where everything is cooked homemade and with care. What better location to do it than in a familiar location where you already know what's wrong with the building and what needs to be fixed? She applied for a loan, and October 13th of this year, she purchased the building. Renovations have already begun, and a new diner, named after the highway it is built directly beside, is expected to occupy the space by January of 2020. As far as employees go, I have been given the role of shift manager, and the employees who were clean, permitted, and hard workers from the former restaurant are being offered the same positions at the new restaurant. Cooks will be cooks, servers will be servers, etc. So, Karen, what did you think of today's stories?
They were horrible.
Horrible? How dare you? These were some of the best we've ever read.
Oh, shut up, Mr. Reddit. It's ridiculous what people like myself have to go through, dealing with stupid people like yourself and your subscribers.
Look, Karen, you can say whatever you want about me, but don't you talk about my re-army.
Re-army. Most of your viewers aren't even subscribed to your channel. 70% if I'm correct.
Well, I can't argue with that. That's true. Most Most of my viewers don't actually subscribe for some reason.
It's because you're stupid, Mr. Reddit.
No, I'm not! Alright guys, let's prove Karen wrong by making sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
Pah, they're not going to listen to you.
And if you'd like me, or Karen,
What?
to record a special message for you, come visit me on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.
Never.
And join as a channel member today, and Karen will give you a special shout out in the next video.
Like heck I will.